Welcome, brethren, as we want to continue again with the study of the world history. As we saw on Daniel last week, we went from Daniel chapter 2 up to Daniel chapter 7. God portrayed the same history in different symbols. We saw initially it was, the history was in the symbol of the statue of Nebuchadnezzar from Babylon, Empire, Middle Persia, Greece, Rome, and iron, and 10 toes, and then the stone. So we continued in Daniel chapter 7, and we saw this beast, which first was a lion, next was a bear, next was a leopard, and then the nondescript beast in two phases, which is the 10 horns, and then when the other 3 horns have been taken off, and also a horn head had developed, which spake things that we saw that it was changing times and laws and started persecution. So as we continue with Daniel, before we go to the history which is in Revelation, so we are taking the whole books of Daniel and Revelation, putting them together, saying exactly what is happening in brief, so that when you're going to study chapter by chapter, it has no problem. You now know it's a history that God is presenting from the beginning to the end. If you are in question with chapters to chapter, you can go to BSM TV app, and then you can further check the videos which we are presenting each chapter separately. But now we are combining everything and making sure our knowledge on prophecy is renewed and revived so that we prepare for the soon coming kingdom of God. So here in Daniel chapter 7, we saw up to the times and dividing of time, which was the 42 months. This 42 months, which gives us 1,260 days, which was the time for the dark ages. And that's the chapter which revealed exactly when this persecution occurred in the time of the Dark Ages, which is from 538 AD to 1798 AD. Now, that was chapter 7, which saw it revealed that Christ went into the Holy of Holies in 1844 and was in front of the Ancient of Days. And then we also saw that when he went into the Holy of Holies, he was given in Revelation, in Daniel chapter 7, verse 13, was given a kingdom and was given dominion, and was also given a power that the saints will inhabit this kingdom. So then let's go today in Daniel chapter 8. We're going to read from verse 1 there. It's another prophet coming in another version, repeating the same history, but presenting further symptoms, further revelation that we saw that it was a development of a horn from the leopard-like beast. When Alexander the Great died, 4 generals took over, which we saw was Cassandra, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy. So the Seleucus is the one who conquered the other 3 and then continued and developed into the Roman Empire, into the 4th beast. So we saw on Daniel chapter 8, that's what it's. We saw that it was going to trade up. Let's see from verse 10, Daniel chapter 8.
Verse 10.
Mm-hmm.
And it waxed great.
So this one then coming from Seleucus, one of the 4 heads which took over Greece. Seleucus developed now into the big one. That big one, throughout, you will find that it is the reputation of the 4th beast. So this 4th beast says waxed very great. And what did that do? Let's see. Mm-hmm.
And it waxed great,
mm-hmm.
even to the host of heaven.
And then it waxed great, even to the host of heaven. What is the host of heaven? These are the Christians that developed that were taken over by this great horn. It's still the reputation of the 4th beast. This person who is horn-head the horn which took off these three horns, which were the heruli, Ostrogoths, and Vandals. This person still now is depicted as a great horn, which took also the Christians, right? And what happened?
And it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground.
So persecution was done, which are who was killed? Christians were killed, and also their leaders. So the stars are leaders. The hosts are the followers. So this is a repetition of what was happening in Dark Ages. And what happened?
And stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host.
Right. Who is the prince of the host? It's Christ himself. He also took the titles of Christ and was honored as Christ on earth. This is what he was doing in the Dark Ages. And what happened?
And by him,
the
daily sacrifice was taken away.
And even the third hour, ninth hour was changed. Not only the times of the Sabbath were changed, and not only the times of the festivals were changed. Even the daily, which is the third hour and ninth hour, the same horn removed the daily. So if we have to reform, we reform not only in the Sabbath, but also in the festivals, and also in the daily. That's why we have to put the hours of the daily at the proper place. It is the third hour of the day in the morning and the ninth hour of the day in the evening. We find that the disciples, when they came on, when they started following Christ, these were the times now they continued. Christ gave that reformation of the daily. So what happened in the Dark Ages, these times were taken off as well. That's why we see even in Laodicea, these times are not there. Why? They haven't reformed in these two times. They should reform these two times together with the Sabbath, together with the festivals. Then they can be saying we are home and safe and ready to be in the kingdom. Otherwise, without that, you are not sealed with all the truth. The truth is not yet on the forehead. So our purpose of the sealing process is to have the whole truth in the forehead. And this truth is the one that will give us the salvation. So now you find that wax great and took the daily. But let's hear more.
Yeah.
Chapter 8, what verse is that? 11.
Yeah. He magnified himself even to the prince of the host.
Right.
And by him the daily sacrifice was taken away.
Right.
And the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice.
So this daily sacrifice is the one that gives the sanctuary. Is it not true that the priest was officiating in these two times in the Old Testament? And that's what we call the sanctuary. So this sanctuary was taken off in the Dark Ages by this little horn, this great horn from Daniel chapter 8. And this daily, that's why we find some are going to church, they only worship God without these two times. And God is saying he wants them back. That's why we see God saying the hours appointed were sacred. These are still sacred hours. These are the third hour and the ninth hour, and it's the daily, which is bringing back the sanctuary. Right, let's hear.
Verse 12.
Verse 12.
And an host was given him against this daily sacrifice by reason of transgression.
Right.
And it cast down the truth to the ground.
He also did all these things.
Prospered.
He also did all these things with a host. What is it? With Christians who were following him. So a host was given him, and he cast all this truth while also leading the Christians. Right, let's hear more.
Then I heard, verse 13, then I heard one saint speaking.
Right, Daniel is hearing one saint speaking. What does this saint say? Let's hear.
And another saint said unto the certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice?
Right, you see, Daniel is worried about this vision concerning the daily, which is the third hour and the ninth hour, which has been taken off by this big one. So in actual fact, Daniel chapter 7, as we saw these And we saw the little horn. It was only taking off the festivals and the religious laws. But Daniel chapter 8 is also concentrating on taking off the daily. This is what was done in the Dark Ages. So Daniel is worried in this chapter and saying, how long shall this vision of the daily and the sanctuary? He's worried that people now are living and worshiping God without the sanctuary. These are the two laws that give the sanctuary of strength. That's why we saw in Daniel chapter 11, as we will see in future, you will see that this very sanctuary is called the sanctuary of strength. So Daniel is worried. How long shall this vision of the sanctuary that people are worshiping God without this sanctuary of the 3rd hour and the 9th hour? Because that's what gives them strength. Does it say the sanctuary of strength? Let's see. In Daniel chapter 11, I think verse 39, there about the sanctuary of strength. So Daniel is worried about these 2 times that have been taken off. We saw the Sabbath was taken off and also the festivals taken off. But now we are seeing the daily being taken off. And he's asking, how long? Let's hear what he terms in Daniel chapter 11 about this particular sanctuary, the 3rd hour and 9th hour. Let's hear.
Verse 31.
Verse 31.
And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength.
So this sanctuary is called the sanctuary of strength in Daniel chapter 11, verse 31. So you see, Daniel is saying this particular sanctuary, which makes people a holy people, it makes people have strength to worship God. It's just being trodden down by the exceeding horn of Daniel chapter 8. So he's asking, how long? Let's go to the question in verse 13.
Verse 13. Daniel 11.
Daniel chapter 8.
Verse 13. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice, and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot?
He's saying this sanctuary of strength being trodden underfoot about the daily. And then says, how long? Listen to the answer.
And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days.
So where do we start counting this 2,300? It's there in the SOP, Sister Wadu clearly tells us that from 457, even Daniel chapter 9 tells us, from the time Artaxerxes offered the 3rd decree to Ezra chapter 7, that's where we find the 3rd decree. It is from 457 BC. Count these 2,300 days will go up to 1844. That's why 1844, the time Christ entered the Holy of Holies, is very important, because in other versions it does not say how long shall the day. It actually says in other versions it says 2,300 evenings and mornings and evenings, counting the dailies, counting the 3rd hour and the 9th hour. These are the mornings and evening. So how long? Let's hear 2,300 days. Verse 14.
Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed.
Right. So this sanctuary shall be cleansed after 2,300 days, which count from 457 BC to 1844. This is a fundamental belief, and anyone who does not know is not really reading religiously. So let's see 2,300 days shall the sanctuary. What does that all mean? It means these 2 times should be from after 1844, should be starting to come back to the people of God. And also the Sabbath should also be, that's why we saw the first thing Sister White did was reform the Sabbath from Sunday to Sabbath. And then next, in 1888, A.T. Jones and Wagon came on to revive the festivals, which is the ceremonial law. This is the one that gives us righteousness. But they were all, neglected and rejected in 1888. But still, God has a people who will put them back. that's what will conclude the Reformation. It does not conclude with only the 10 Commandments and no festivals. No. The festivals have also to be put back because they were also trodden. We saw in Daniel chapter 7. And also in Daniel chapter 8, we see the daily being also trodden. It has to be brought back. From the 3rd hour, 9th hour, people should continue keeping these hours in their daily lives, because God gave us as a sanctuary of strength, exactly like it was being done by our Old Testament fathers like Abraham. They were taking morning sacrifice and evening sacrifice. That was their daily. But now we don't kill the lambs, but we still take the bread and wine at that time, 3rd hour, and at the 9th hour. This is the sanctuary of strength, which Daniel was talking about, right? So we have seen in Daniel chapter 8, the importance is this other department of laws that have been nailed to, that has been taken off by the beast in the dark ages in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. So it's further modified by Daniel chapter 8, right? Have you finished? Come to the end of it. Right. So let's go to Daniel chapter 9. We are going with the world history. World history, Daniel chapter 9 will also further elaborate and tell us more about Daniel chapter 9. So before we tackle chapter 9, you'll find chapter 8 has further verses that we need also to understand. Let's hear more from where you are reading. You finished in verse 14. Let's read it like a novel, and when we interpret where we need to understand. Yeah.
And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. And it came to pass, when I, even I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man, and I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So you see, Gabriel was responsible to make Daniel understand. Gabriel deals with all the prophets. The prophets are given further light by Gabriel. Now, Gabriel is with Daniel and is being told that to explain more, because Daniel was fainting because of the importance of the things that had been trodden down, that had been taken off by the beast in the dark ages. So here Gabriel has been told, make Daniel know. Let's hear him. So he came near where I stood.
Yeah.
And when he came, I was afraid, and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Right. So it's being specified that what you have been seeing, what has been happening. You know, Daniel lived in the kingdom of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar is 537 BC, just very far. But it's being warned that these things that we are seeing are in the Christian era, in our time, in the time of after Christ had long went to heaven in 538 AD and 1798 AD. That's where the Dark Ages was. So he's being warned that what you have been shown is going to happen in the time of the end. But let's hear more. Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground. Right. But he touched me and set me upright. Right. And he said, behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last day. Right. So now Gabriel wants to make sure Daniel knows what he has been seeing. But not everything, because Daniel was really questioning. He could check. Nobody would explain to him. And that's why he was really sick about it, because he saw what was happening in the time of the end, in our time. And now the history is being repeated by Gabriel to Daniel. Let's hear what Gabriel says. And he said, behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For at the time appointed, the end shall come. The ram which thou sawest. So it's a repetition of what happened
They started with the ram, which is the right place here.
The ram, which thou sawest, having 2 horns, are the kings of Media and Persia.
So it started with the ram, where there are 2 horns, and which depicted Media and Persia. And what?
And the rough goat.
So Greece came as a rough goat in Daniel chapter 8. Yeah.
Is the king of Grecia.
And with the rough goat is the king of Grecia.
And the great horn.
The great horn.
That is between his eyes is
right.
the first king.
Right.
Now that being
which is
broken.
King Alexander the Great. Right.
Now that being broken.
But that horn was broken. Right.
Whereas 4 stood up for it.
4 horns stood up.
4 kingdoms.
4 kingdoms
shall stand up out of the nation.
Now we know these 4 kingdoms, which are Ptolemy, Seleucus, Lysimachus, Cassandra, right?
But not in his power.
But not in his power, because he will be dead, Alexander the Great.
And in the latter time.
In the latter time.
Of the kingdom.
That's where we started this big one, starting through Seleucus. It's one of the 4 horns. So this one developed. Now we are being told in the later times, listen,
of their kingdom.
Of their kingdom.
When the transgressors are come to the full.
Who are these transgressors that when the transgressors have come to the full, who are they? We know there is AD 34, which was an end of probation to those who were refusing to accept Christ as a Lamb of God, as the Son of God, when he came in AD 31. So these transgressors, because those heathens are transgressors already, but there were people who were upright and rejected Christ, and we know them. And their probation ended in AD 34 when this gospel was also being shared to the Gentiles. So these are the ones depicted as when the transgressors have come to their full. Listen, what will happen in the later days? Repeat that one.
And in the latter time
of
their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to full, a king of fierce countenance.
A king of fierce countenance. So what happened after AD 34? Then they went into a king of fierce countenance, which is now going to depict the Dark Ages. Do you understand? It's just a repetition in another form. Right? A
king of fierce countenance.
Right?
And understanding dark sentences.
But that king of fierce countenance understands dark sentences. That's why he operated in the Dark Ages, changing times and laws. Do you understand? It's just a repetition of what has been said by Daniel chapter 7. Right?
And his power shall be mighty.
And this king will have mighty power,
but not by his own power.
Right?
And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice.
He destroyed wonderfully in the time of persecution, in the Dark Ages. This has been depicted in the Bible.
And shall prosper,
right,
and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people.
Right, that's what he did. The mighty and the holy people were all. We saw these people, Jeremiah, Has, we saw them, and all the people that you can see, Wycliffe, everyone who has been persecuted. They are all recorded. You can read that information in the Great Controversy. It's all depicted in black and white.
And through his policy, also, he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand.
Right.
And he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many.
Right.
He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand.
So God is saying it's not going to go any further. The plans all from Dark Ages until the end, God will prosper and the saints will prosper. So we should worship knowing one day we shall overcome. Yeah? And then let's go to Daniel chapter 9. Now, it's chapter by chapter, it's the history repeating itself like that. Let's see Daniel chapter 9. We see here it's a chapter where Daniel was praying. From chapter 1. And the reason why Daniel was praying is because he saw that the time they were in Babylon, which is 537 AD, that's Babylonian Empire. So the time they were in that Babylonian Empire was almost up. They were supposed to stay 70 weeks. How did Daniel know? It's because Daniel was reading the book of Jeremiah. The book of Jeremiah is the one, he was a prophecy student as well as someone who was prophesying as well. So reading other people's prophecies like Jeremiah, also prophesying, now enjoying his prophecy with Daniel. And while we are enjoying his prophecy, we also should know that we should be prophesying to enjoy also revelation. Revelation will also give us a glimpse until the end. Right, but now Daniel has seen 70 weeks are up when they were in the Babylonian Empire. Now he's praying for that. What next, God? Because our time is up here. What next? Let's hear Daniel chapter 9. It's a long prayer, so you can start maybe towards the end, or maybe about verse 15. Let's hear.
And now, O Lord of our God, and now, O Lord our God, that has brought thy people forth out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand, and has gotten thee renown, as at this day. We have sinned, we have done wickedly.
So he's praying for his people, Daniel, and he knows his people came out of Egypt, and now they are in Babylonian captivity. The 70 years is about to finish. He's praying, he's admitting we sinned as a people. Right, let's hear more.
O Lord, according to all thy righteousness,
right,
I beseech thee, let thine anger and thy fury be turned away from the city, Jerusalem, the holy mountain, because for our sins and for the iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and thy people are become a reproach to all that are about us.
So he's mentioning all the sins that are with these people, asking for pardon, all this. That's Daniel chapter 9. Go to verse 19, let's hear.
Verse 19. O Lord, hear.
He's talking to God in a prayer.
O Lord, forgive, O Lord,
right,
and do. Defer not for thine own sake.
Right.
O my God, for the city and the people, for the city and thy people are called by thy name. What
is interesting is that Daniel was praying, but not any time. He was also using the appointed times, the 3rd hour and the 9th hour. The 3rd hour in the Old Testament is called the morning sacrifice, and in the 9th hour is called the evening sacrifice. But how did we come to know that it is the 3rd hour and 9th hour? Because that is the time they were also killing the lamb for the morning sacrifice, and that is the time they were killing the lamb for the evening sacrifice. So when the actual lamb came, it was in Mark chapter 15 verse 25. When the actual lamb came, that time when the lamb was being killed in the morning sacrifice time, or the morning oblation time. That's another way to call the same time. Morning oblation and morning sacrifice time. The actual lamb, which is Christ, died on those two, he used those 2 times for his death. Then we knew that that is the time which the lamb was being killed, which was pointing to his body, which was going to be killed. So we can check on Mark chapter 15 verse 25. Let's see, what time did he die? What time was he crucified? Was it the actual time? Because we were told at the 9th hour when he died, even the lamb which was about to be killed in the 12 ages ran away. So we know that is the time called the evening sacrifice. But let's hear, what time did he die? Was he nailed to the cross? In verse 25, Mark 15 verse 25.
And it was the 3rd hour, and they crucified him.
You see, exactly at the 3rd hour. Why? That's the time they were killing the lamb at the morning sacrifice time. But in the New Testament now it's called 3rd hour. And then also, let's see in the 9th hour what happened. So why would they wait the whole morning, and then 3rd hour, which is about 9 o'clock, they put the body on the cross? Why? That is the time the priest was officiating, killing the lamb. And what time did he die? He spent the whole day on the cross. but was alive. But at the particular time when they killed the lamb at the 9th hour, that's when the lamb ran away. That's when he died. But let's hear verse 34. What time did he die?
And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice,
Right.
saying, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani,
Right.
which is being interpreted, my God, why hast thou forsaken
And
me?
at that time he gave up the ghost. So it was these two times that the Old Testament was using and terming it morning oblation or morning sacrifice, and then evening sacrifice or evening oblation, or 9th hour in the New Testament. So let's go back to Daniel chapter 9 and see what time was Daniel praying. We saw this long prayer. Was he also using this time before they were meddled about? They were changed by the beast in the dark ages. Let me see.
Listen,
Yeah, verse 20.
And whilst I was speaking and praying
Right.
and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord my God for the holy mountain of my God, yea,
Right.
whilst I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening oblation.
Do you see it was the evening oblation or the 9th hour or the evening sacrifice time? So you see these two times, Daniel also knew them. He was praying on those times. And of course, the third time is when it is after these two times. So we can see that these were the two times before they were nailed, they were chained by the beast, as we saw in Daniel chapter 8, them being chained, the daily being changed. But Daniel was still keeping the daily. And at that time, Gabriel came with a message for God. Let's hear what Gabriel said to Daniel.
And he informed me and talked with me and said, O Daniel, I am now come forth to give thee skill and understanding. At the beginning of thy supplications,
Right.
the commandment came forth, and I am come to shew thee, for thou art greatly beloved.
Right.
Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision.
Listen, he's now getting those answers in the time of the daily evening oblation. For those who are keeping the daily, continue those times. That's when Gabriel comes with information to you. So those are very sacred hours, and we should continue. That's why Sister White talks about them in T3, in Testimonies for the Church, volume 3, page 252. Talks about them that these hours are very sacred, and he looks with pleasure when he sees people worshiping him in these hours. But the whole ceremonies without these hours, God condemns. He says so in Spirit of Prophets, page 253, 252 on Testimonies to Ministers. Testimonies for the Church, volume 3. So, as Daniel was worshiping, that is what pleased God. Even Gabriel can say, you are most loved in heaven. Why? He keeps the appointed times of God. He is actually worshiping God according to the appointed times which he has laid in the Bible. So he's mostly loved. That's why he was given all these revelations, all these prophecies, so that he can write for the whole world. For those who are going to be translated, they will understand and worship accordingly. Now, let's hear what Gabriel says to Daniel. It's now come to answer to Daniel, who's saying, so what next? After the 70 years has passed, so what are we waiting for? So he wants to know more. Imagine, he didn't have the book of Revelation. It hadn't been written. He was in the dark. So that's why he was worried then. Now, 70 years have passed. So I need to know what next, right? So let's hear.
70 weeks determined upon thy people
Right.
and upon thy holy city,
Right.
to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness.
You see, 5 conditions. You can call them 5 conditions. Now Daniel is told, your people have now been given 70 weeks. So if you want to know how many, we said last study in Ezekiel chapter 4 verse 6, we say that a day in the Bible is a year. So if it is 70 weeks, we still want to know how many days is that 70 weeks. How long is it a week? Is 7 days. So 70 times 7 will give us 490 days. Then we convert the day-year ratio on Ezekiel 4 verse 6, it is 490 years. If you calculate that, I'm not going to be calculating for you today, but there's a video which I produced where the calculation is. But if you calculate the 490 and we start with them in 457 BC, you will see the 490 years will get to AD 34. Yeah, that's the 70 weeks. And you count twice on AD 1 and BC 1. That's 2 years there, right? So it will give us 490 years, which went up to AD 34. That's why we come up with the year AD 34. Why? We start counting 490 years from 457 BC, where we were. That same chapter of Daniel chapter 9 will tell us to start counting from that year, where there is a command to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, which is in the 3rd decree of Ezra. The Artaxerxes' third decree is in Ezra chapter 7. You can read that 3rd decree. So it occurred in 457 BC. So you can count 490 years. That will get you up to AD 34. So this is also a fundamental time and belief. Right. So let's hear 490. They are given 5 conditions. What condition? 1. Let's hear the condition. To finish.
To finish the transgression.
They were supposed to be holy people by that 70 weeks, 490 years. Be holy. Finish transgression. So what it all means is, if they complied, Christ was not going back to heaven. He was supposed to stay then and establish the kingdom. But because he went back, it means they did not comply with that 490 years. So they remained, they actually crucified him. So there was no ending of transgression. So they were supposed to be holy people in 490. So God has set another cap for them to fulfill. So then what happened? To finish
the transgression.
They're supposed to finish transgression.
To make an end of sins.
And end all the sins.
To make reconciliation for iniquity.
Reconcile for iniquity. They're supposed to reconcile and be together with God.
To bring in everlasting righteousness.
And also everlasting righteousness was supposed to be attained in that 490 years.
And to seal up the vision and the prophecy.
The visions that Daniel had been shown, this beast going up to AD 538 AD and 1798 was no longer going to go there. Why? If they finished in AD 34, righteousness was going to be attained and the kingdom was going to be established in Jerusalem. The vision to go up to dark ages was not going to go.
And to anoint the most holy.
Christ was supposed to be anointed. Then he reigns in the kingdom. That's what was supposed to be done on that year. So we are finding that in Daniel chapter 9. That is the whole purpose of Daniel chapter 9, to further give another 70 years. They're supposed to finish transgression. They're supposed to anoint the Holy One if they remain holy. And the visions to God to continue up to the time of our time. It's all gone. But did they fulfill that condition? No. That's why we're still here trying to preach to make sure the whole world will know about God and will stop sinning. Right, let's go to the next verse. Right, next verse.
Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem.
That's the verse that makes us know that the decree in Ezra chapter 7 is the third decree which was uttered by King Artaxerxes to Ezra. That decree was fulfilling the 457 BC, which is on Daniel chapter 9. Let's hear this decree. From the decree, listen to that.
Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem,
right,
unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks.
Right, so there's now a breakdown of the 70 weeks. Right, so first we were given 70 weeks. So now this is a breakdown in the middle of the 70 weeks, which starts from 457 BC to AD 34. That's what I said. And those who calculate it, they know the 70 weeks, you just multiply by 7 and you get 490 days, which go from 457 to to 457 BC to AD 34. You get me properly there. So here we have been given, no therefore, we are now being given a breakdown that from the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem, which is 457 BC, and unto the Messiah it shall be 7 weeks. Right, read that sentence again. From the commandment to repeat.
Okay.
Know therefore
and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem,
right,
unto the Messiah the Prince,
right,
shall be 7 weeks.
7 weeks. And so 7 weeks first from 457 BC and what?
7 weeks and 62 weeks.
And 3 score. A single score is 20 years. So 3 score will give us 60. And then 2 weeks. So from the commandment, it is 7 what? From the commandment.
7
weeks.
And 3 score and 2.
3 score and 2. So altogether, you add 7 weeks plus 3 score. 3 score is 60 already. Plus 7, which is plus 7 and plus 2, which is 69 weeks. So that 69 weeks will multiply by 7, you get 483 days. You change again to a day-year ratio, which is in Ezekiel chapter 4 verse 6, each day is a year. 483 days will change to 483 years. So when you start from that commandment in 457 BC and calculate 483 years, that you will come to AD 27, which is the day where Christ was baptized. So that's why it's from the commandment up to the Messiah is 7 weeks plus 3 score and 2. So you count 7 weeks plus 3 score, which is 7 weeks plus 60, and plus 2, which gets 69 weeks. And then that 69 weeks times 7 is 483 days. And 483 days in day ratio is 483 years. From 457 BC to AD 27, Christ was baptized. That is verse 25. So let's hear the next verse.
And after 62 weeks.
So after 483 days, or 483 years, or after AD 27, what happens?
Shall the Messiah be cut off?
Of course, up to AD 34, we have 70 weeks from 457 BC. So it means if we have 69 weeks, then it's 7 weeks left. So in the middle of that 7 weeks, Christ died. So 7 weeks is 3.5 plus 3.5. Do you understand? So if we add 3.5 on top of AD 27, 3.5 years, we get to AD 31. So that is the year Christ was killed. In the middle of that year, he was killed. He was crucified. And then we are left with another 3.5 years. What happens to that 3.5 years? Up to AD 34. What is it?
And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week.
So,
And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease.
so you see, that oblation was the time Christ died, and was the time the animals were killed in the time he died. 3rd hour and 9th hour. That's the time he preached when he was crucified at 3rd hour, and his oblation also occurred at 9th hour. But now we are being told in AD 31, in the middle of the last week, AD 31, the sacrifice and oblation ceased. So the killing of the animals ceased. This has nothing to do with the festivals. It was not the killing of the Passover. It was not the killing of the Pentecost. It was not the killing of the Feast of Tabernacle. It was the killing of the lambs, of the oblation that ceased. You understand? So what happens then? We'll finish that whole chapter.
And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week.
So this 1 week, it was just to confirm the covenant. And up to AD 34, we saw the disciples, they remained from AD 31. Christ went back to heaven after 40 days of his resurrection. And then the disciples remained preaching to the house of God, house of Israel at that time. And he was confirming the covenant. AD 34, Stephen was killed and probation closed and went to the Gentiles. So this is Daniel chapter 9, and we are seeing Daniel chapter 9 is just a rundown until the time of the cross and until the AD 34. This is the whole chapter of Daniel chapter 9, telling us about what happened, and these times which also affect us, for they go up to AD 1844. Because the 2,300 days now go to AD 34. I mean to 1844. That is our time also. So let's go to Daniel chapter 12. I will leave those two, Daniel chapter 11 and Daniel chapter 10. They need to be tackled separate. But let's go to Daniel chapter 12. So when you're dealing with Daniel chapter 12, let's read from verse 1.
Verse 1. And at that time shall Michael stand up.
So we want to know which time Michael shall stand up. It comes from Daniel chapter 11. That's where the time is. I always told you that there is somewhere where in the world history and in the world news that shows the coming of Christ that we should be wary of. We saw in Daniel chapter 11 that there will be a debate occurring in Jerusalem. It is Daniel chapter 11, and you see in Daniel chapter 11 what will be happening, and that will give Christ to come. So if you are on your own, read from verse 42 and 45, and then at that time, when the world news is on there, in Daniel chapter 11, verse 45, that is the time Christ comes. So all the people who read should also be weary of what is happening and know exactly what will bring Christ. He doesn't just come. He comes in accordance to what will be happening on earth. So at that time, he comes from Daniel chapter 11, verse 42 to 45. So I give you to read that, what will be happening. But here in Daniel chapter 12, you'll find that at that particular time, coming from 11, that's when Christ will come, before the earth has concluded the probation. Probation still active. So Christ comes. But let's hear from verse 1, when he comes.
And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time.
Right. So we see him coming before the world has come to an end. Why? Because when he comes, he is followed by a time of trouble. So the number 666 you are crying for, we know for sure once you finish the sealing program, you will be with Christ as he will be standing on Mount Zion with 144,000 before the world is finished, concluded its probation. So the number 66 occurs when he's here already, because Michael comes first, and what follows is the time of trouble. Simple, straightforward there. Don't put words into the verse. The verse did not say, it says he comes and there shall be a time of trouble. Follow the sequence which is in the Bible. So he is coming after the sealing program of the 144,000. We see him standing with the 144,000 as a lamb on Mount Zion in Revelation chapter 14 verse 1. And we are being told that they are the only ones that have not been defiled by women, meaning there's still defilement on earth. So he's standing as a lamb because a lamb is depicting he's not yet the King of Kings. He's still having some intercession for others who have not left sin. So he's still going to be intermediating for the other people. So we know definitely judgment begins in the house of God. And when it begins in the house of God, it starts with the house of God and further proceeds to the Gentiles. So judgment right now is in Laodicea. And after Laodicea, it goes to the Gentiles. So God cannot, like he did in AD 31, he commissioned the disciples to preach in Israel, first in Judea, and next outside. They went to the Gentiles with Paul now. So it's the same order. And we are clearly told by Revelation chapter 11, measure the temple and the altar first. And then later on, go to the outer court. So the outer court from the sanctuary service was dominated by Gentiles, not Israel. So here at that time, when he has finished with those who are receiving the seal right now, he stands with the 144,000 on Mount Zion, and then what follows is the time of trouble such as never was. That's where the four winds of Revelation chapter 7 verse 2, which were seen, the winds which were about to let go, they were told to hold until the 144,000 were sealed. So it's so appropriate that the 144,000 will have been sealed at that time when Christ comes as Michael and stands with them as a lamb, and preceded by the time of trouble such as never was. This is what happens when he comes to establish the kingdom. Now, but at that time he comes, and there shall be a time of trouble. Do you believe Christ is going to come before the world comes to an end? Do you believe that one? Because the Bible says so. He comes, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was after he comes. Simple. Now let's hear more from that one.
And at that time shall Michael stand up,
right?
the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation,
right?
Even to that same time.
Right? The same time. The Bible continues to say that same time. When Christ comes as Michael, at that same time there shall be a time of trouble such as never was. Even at that same time, what happens?
And at that time, thy people
shall be
delivered.
So at that time, the 144,000 is delivered. Those are the people who Daniel represented, who are now the people of God at that time, adopted Israel, spiritual Israel at that time. They shall be delivered. Everyone, listen to that.
Everyone that shall be found written in the book.
They are the only ones found in the book. They are the only ones who have been. How were they found? Because they have been cleansed by receiving the three seals. They have been cleaned at that time. The Gentiles haven't been written. We see the Gentiles being written when they are admitted into the kingdom. When the 144,000 are told to go and collect the heathens and bring them to Israel, to the kingdom, then that's when the Gentiles are entered into the book. But here, everyone written in the book is Israel at that time. Thy people shall be delivered. They are delivered at that time. Now, let's hear more.
And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake.
Right.
Some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt.
Who are waking up? Because this resurrection has got two people, two types of people: the wicked and the wise, and the righteous. Yet the coming of Christ to collect the saints after years after the kingdom has long been established, that coming of Christ, which everybody is longing to see right now, is still future. Because that resurrection only in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 16. Let's go to that one. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 16. It's only got the righteous people only being resurrected. Read from that verse.
Verse 16.
Verse 16.
For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout and with the voice of the archangel,
right,
and with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first.
You see, there is a resurrection when he comes now to collect the saints. Only the dead in Christ shall rise first. And what happens to those who are living?
Then we, which are alive and remain, shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we forever be with the Lord. Finish.
There is no resurrection of the wicked. There is no going to heaven of the wicked who are alive, both alive and dead. Those who are alive, they don't even see Christ. They just see the brightness and it destroys them. It's there on 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 8. Read it.
Verse 8.
Verse 8. So you see, 2 Thessalonians will tell you what happens to the wicked who are living.
Verse 8. And then shall the wicked be revealed,
right,
whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming.
So you see, the wicked, they never saw Christ. But there is a coming where Christ comes as Michael. The wicked actually have dialogue with Christ. Let's go to Matthew chapter 25. You see, this coming is different from that coming where he only resurrects the righteous, and also he only takes the righteous living. And the wicked who are living, they are destroyed by his brightness. They don't have dialogue with him. Now in Matthew chapter 25, verse 31.
Verse 31. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory.
So here he's not stepping in the cloud. This time he's stepping on the ground, sitting on the throne of his glory. This is the time he's coming for the kingdom. Do you understand? To establish the kingdom. This is the time. And no wicked is dying at this time. But we saw the wicked being destroyed by the brightness of his coming. This is the later coming, when he's coming to collect the saints. The saints, they hop in the cloud. And those who are wicked, they destroyed. And those who are wicked in the grave, they never woke up. But here we have been told when he will sit on the throne, and what is happening before him? Before him.
And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left.
You see, he's talking to the sheep on the right. What does he say to those on the right?
Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come ye, blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation.
What are they inheriting? The kingdom. So are we right when he says he is coming to sit on the throne and establish the kingdom? That's where he's taking those who have been collected by the 144,000 into the kingdom. Inherit the kingdom. They're not being taken up in the cloud. They're inheriting the kingdom. But those on the left, what happens to the verse on the left?
Verse 41. Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels.
Right.
For I was an hungered, and ye gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink.
Right.
I was a stranger, and he took me not in.
Do they reply him? Go to the sentence where they reply him.
Then shall they also answer him, saying,
You see, they are answering. There's a dialogue.
Lord, when saw we thee an hungered,
when did we see you?
Or a stranger?
They are talking together with Christ. This is not the coming where they are destroyed by the brightness of his coming. These are different episodes. So the first episode is when he is establishing the kingdom. He's not destroying the wicked yet. But the next episode, when now all the saints are together in the kingdom, that's when he comes and the saints, they hop in the cloud, and he never steps on the earth. And each grave of those who are wicked, who are not in the book, they never open. They never open. They are not resurrected at all. When is their resurrection? Let's go to Revelation 20, verses 4 and 5.
Verse 4. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus.
Let's go to 5.
Verse 5. But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished.
Right?
This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death had no power. So
we see in this first resurrection, where he comes and the dead in Christ rise first, those who are remaining in the grave, they don't live until 1,000 years is finished. And blessed and holy is only those who were resurrected. So we have to separate these two incidents, these two resurrections, rightfully, so that we understand that there's two events we are waiting for. The event first of the establishment of the kingdom, and also the event of going to heaven. These are separate events. So what is this resurrection on Daniel chapter 12? Sister White talks about it in Desire of Ages, page 637. Talks about this resurrection when these graves are opened and two set of people, righteous and wicked, come up from the grave. She talks about this resurrection, what it is called, when she is paraphrasing and commenting on Daniel chapter 12. Let's hear. It says graves are opened.
GC 637.
637, yeah.
Graves are opened, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth awake, some to everlasting life,
right,
and some to shame and everlasting contempt.
So it's two sets of people, righteous and wicked. But I want her to tell us exactly which are these righteous and which are the wicked. Let's hear.
All who have died in the faith of the third angel's message.
Do you see, from 1844, the third angel's message was preached. All who died after believing the 10 commandments from Sister White. What happens?
Come forth from the tomb, glorified.
Do you see that? That's the resurrection of the righteous. Those who accepted the Sabbath. But because of time, they could not go up to our time to have all the three seals. They had the seal of the Sabbath, but they don't have the other two. But God knew that after accepting that one, if they were given the privilege to be alive, they were still going to go to the next three. So they wake up to join those who are proclaiming the three seals, the 144,000. And what?
All who have died in the faith of the third angel's message come forth from the tomb glorified.
Right.
To hear God's covenant of peace with those who have kept his law.
So what will they be doing while they are waiting for the next resurrection? They will be working together with the 144,000. That's where we find them in a quotation. Sister White says, my work, your work, we are all going to get up, get the everlasting covenant and preach it together. It's there, that quotation, right? Do you know where to find it? So they come and join the 144,000 and say, my work, your work. Now, even Sister White will be part of this resurrection of those who died in the faith of the third angel's message. Have you found it?
17.4.
Volume 7, Testimonies for the Church, page
17.4.
17.4.
Your work,
right?
My work,
right,
will not cease with this life. For a little while we may rest in the grave.
Right.
But when the call comes, we shall, in the kingdom of God, take up our work once more.
This is what they died. Those who believe in the third angel's message, they died believing that we will just rest for some time, and when the call is heard to wake up, they also take up the work in the kingdom. They actually specify. They are not waking up, going to the clouds into heaven. They are going to the kingdom. Repeat it so that we all understand it. Right?
The battle cry is sounding along the line. Let every soldier of the cross push to the front, not in self-sufficiency, but in meekness and lowliness, and in firm faith in God.
Read again.
Your
where
work,
it says, yeah,
my work,
right,
will not cease with this life.
Right.
For a little while we may rest in the grave, but when the call comes, we shall in the kingdom of God take up our work once more.
Your work, my work, will not cease with this life. So they are clearly telling us that their death does not stop the life on earth. They will rest for that time, but when the call comes, they will wake up and take up the cross again and preach this message together with the 144,000 who are current preachers on that time when they wake up, and they are preaching in the kingdom. So this should further establish ourselves into the message to understand that the kingdom is surely going to be established. And because Sister White and her group, those who died in the faith of the third angel's message, are resurrected to take up that work in the kingdom. Now, this reading of prophets should make an impact into our lives so that we can understand what God is preparing for the whole saints who are going to be translated. You should know further. Daniel and Revelation should clear all the mist which is in our head. That's why even when we have to say it, we say it without even checking in the book. It should all stay there. And you teach it from your lips, and it should be in your mouth. And your mind should be engrossed with all the truth, so that you don't. That's why God wants us to be very highly temperate, so that the messages stay in our brain. We can easily tell the people the message without looking and perusing and perusing. And this perusal should be done while we are talking, fortifying ourselves with the message. When we are brought into wherever situations, we are able to narrate the Bible as it is without even checking. It should be in the brain because of temperance. Now, go back to the verse where we are, Daniel chapter 12. So we've been told there's two GC 637. Those who died in the faith of the third angel's message are the righteous. And then let's hear those who are on the side of the wicked, who are also being resurrected on that resurrection. Let's hear.
Let's talk.
Right.
This one.
No, you are on 637 GC. So we have seen those who are dying in the faith of the third angel's message, who believed. They died saying, my work, your work, let's rest for some time. It has not ceased. Our work has not ceased on this earth. But when the call comes, we'll be resurrected and we'll be in the kingdom and take up the cross and start working again. So this is clear that the establishment of the kingdom does not stop God's work. It now further sends the work to the Gentiles, because judgment is finished in the house of God. But let's hear more. Who are the wicked then?
All who have died in the faith of the third angel's message,
Right.
come forth from the tomb glorified,
Right.
to hear God's covenant of peace with those who have kept his law.
Right.
They also which pierced him.
So the wicked are which ones? They which pierced him. We saw in Revelation chapter 1, verse 7, says, he comes, and even those who pierced him shall see him. When did they get their resurrection? It was before the resurrection of those who will be resurrected in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16. Before, God will make sure this special group of those who pierced him, and who else? The special resurrection of those who pierced him has been done before the general resurrection, which happens when he comes on the cloud. But let's hear the special resurrection. Who are those?
They also which pierced him.
Right?
Those that mocked and derided Christ's dying agony.
Those who were laughing at him, giving him wine and saying, save your thirst, when yet it was a feast, he was not supposed to take any leaven. Those who were dying and mocking him and deriding him, they will wake up. And what?
And the most violent opposers
in each generation, there is a most violent opposer of the truth. Those who were killing and persecuting people for the truth in the dark ages. Those who were killing the prophets who had been sent by God in all ages. A prophet was in trouble, people not even listening to the prophet. God has a record of them for the special resurrection. In every generation, in our generation, those who are opposing the truth right now, whether they die, God will make sure they wake up to see that the truth is prospered. They wake up those who pierced him to see that the actual Christ who they were nailing to the cross was the Son of God. They will all be resurrected. On the other side, the saints, those who believed in the third angel's message, 1844, will be resurrected to join, because they died saying, my work, your work will not cease with this earth, but at the call will take up the work in the kingdom. This also will be resurrected. Do you understand? So the Daniel chapter 12 is so wide. It's got a special resurrection in a time of trouble. And we have seen who are being resurrected. Go back to Daniel chapter 12. So now we understand Daniel chapter 12 is so anchored in what is future to us. Right, let's hear verse 2.
And many of them
Many
sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake.
Right.
Some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt.
Right.
And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament.
So you see which ones are wise at that time? Those resurrected to join up the work in the kingdom, and who also are wise. The 144,000 with the 3 seals will also be wise, will enjoy. This has been predicted by Daniel chapter 12. Let's hear more.
And they that turn many to righteousness.
And them that are busy now turning many to righteousness,
As
in
the
that
stars.
time, they will be shining as stars, because they have the 3 seals. They will be shining, going to the Gentiles, preaching to the Gentiles, and the Gentiles coming in front of Christ sitting on the throne, some separated to the right and some to the left. And, it will be very interesting. Thus the kingdom will be established. And listen.
But thou, O Daniel,
Right?
shut up the
So
words.
Daniel is
Seal the
interested
book.
in that future resurrections, future time of trouble, interested to want to know more. But he's told, shut that book. That book of Daniel has been shut from the time Daniel was told. Shut it, but when up to when? Listen to that.
But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end.
Right?
Many shall run to and fro.
So when you see us enjoying this book, we were not told that we will go to heaven before enjoying it. It is going to be opened in the time of the end. So now we should be occupying our pulpits with Daniel's, because Daniel died, that man died, expecting to know more about the book. Whatever he was being told, shown, the symbols that was to happen in future, he died wanting to know. We should also be reading and understanding, because why is it shut? It was still in 537 BC where he was in the Babylonian Empire, and it's still future to him. Those who have gone throughout the history and seen what happened, what happened to Seleucus, he went into the Roman Empire, and what happened in this one, and how did history go, and who did that? Where is Darius? Where is Cyrus? There was still future to Daniel. Where is the Greece, Alexander the Great? There was still future to Daniel. And those in the 10 doors, those who are in the time of the end, in the time of clay and iron, they know the history. They have proved it. The Bible and the history is all commingled. They will understand. But Daniel wouldn't understand that. So when he died, he was rest assured this book is going to be opened in the time of the end. But what happens in the time of the end? Listen to that.
But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end.
Right?
Many shall run to and fro,
Do you see that?
and knowledge shall be increased.
Many shall run to and fro. And what makes that? Technology. Planes will be there. You preach one time from America, one time from Israel, one time from UK, one time from to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Is that not predicted? It is. It is predicted. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Right? And listen to that.
Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood other two, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river.
You see, on the bank of the river, Ulai, that's where everything happened with Daniel. Now he's telling us exactly where he was in the Babylonian Empire. But let's hear.
And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times and half, and when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall
Daniel
be
is giving us a preview of what happened in Daniel 7. The times and half, we saw it on Daniel chapter 7, which is here a times and half, which is from 538 AD to 1798, 1,260 days. He saw that, and what?
And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go thy way, Daniel,
Go thy way,
for the
Daniel.
words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand.
This book of
but
Daniel,
the wise shall understand.
if you see somebody not understanding it when it is being preached, God clearly says there's some wickedness which he does not want to leave. The wicked shall not understand it, but the wise will understand. It will be narrated like a novel, like what we are doing. The wicked shall never understand it. Why? There is some wickedness blocking occluding the light of God. That wickedness should be taken off so that you understand. It has been predicted the wicked will never understand anything to do with the kingdom. You hear people daydreaming that there is never going to be a kingdom. That's wickedness. The Bible says it clear, the spirit of prophecy clear. The wicked truly shall not understand, but all the wise shall understand. Listen to that.
He shall be purified and made white and tried.
You see?
But the wicked shall do wickedly, and
When
none of the
this
wicked
book-
shall understand.
When this book is opened in the time of the end, the people shall be purified and made white. But none of the wicked shall understand this book, and none of them shall be purified. We saw this book coming with William Miller, which we'll see when we are doing Revelation chapter 10. That's William Miller coming with the book which is open. And this is the book of Daniel, which was closed. There's only one book in the Bible which was closed, which is Daniel. Daniel book is closed, but opened in the time of the end. We saw Miller bringing the book when he's eating the book. It was told, eat the book in Revelation chapter 10. Eat it. And it was just sweet as honey in the mouth. In the belly it was bitter. That was William Miller. How was it bitter? It was predicted that when he says Christ was coming in 1844, it was the going of Christ into the Holy of Holies. But it was not the wrong timing of 2,300 days, which brought to 1844. That was wrong. No. It was the event which he predicted, which was wrong. Because he knew there was a coming of Christ, but not on earth, but it was a coming into the Holy of Holies. That was the bitterness. The disappointment was when he told people to wait for the set date in 1844. And that set date, instead, Christ went into the Holy of Holies instead of coming on earth. That created bitterness. But he was 100% correct on the timing of 2,300 days, and he was correct that there was something happening to Christ. There was a coming happening, but it was not on earth, it was in the Holy of Holies. So Sister White was given a vision to correct that the coming was going into the Holy of Holies, not on earth. Right? So it was bitter in the belly. So here, the book which has been closed, but many shall be purified when it is opened. So we are living in the time when this book was long opened in 1844, 1833 by William Miller. So now we should be enjoying the book, not all these other stories that we are telling people and making it a subject of object, when this is the time for us to be reading Daniel and Revelation and understanding all the prophecies of the kingdom which are appointed by the book of Daniel, the kingdom that are appointed by Revelation. This is where we should dwell our faith and put our faith in these two books so that we know the end time and prepare for the end. Now, read please here.
And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up,
so we are
it shall
being
be
told
1,290 days.
So we are being told from the time the daily was taken off to the time when?
And the abomination that maketh desolate.
To the abomination that maketh desolate. So this is the 1,290 days. That's the abomination that maketh desolate. So it's the time from 508 AD. That's the time when we saw in Daniel chapter 8 that the horn was changing the daily. It was done in 508. To the time the abomination that maketh desolate, it is 1798, when the Dark Ages stopped. It is 1,290 years. So you should know the mark point. The time of 508, when the daily was taken away, to the time of 1798, when the abomination that maketh desolate. That's 1798. So this is 1,290 days. Let's hear more.
Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,330 days.
So the 1,335 days is when you go that time from 508 to 1844. That will give you 1,335 days. So from the time the daily was taken away, you go 1,335 days, it will send you to 1844. But what is that year? That year is called a blessed year. Why blessed? Because that's the time Daniel said, unto 2,300 days shall the sanctuary laws now be brought back. Which are the sanctuary laws? The festivals, the Sabbaths, the daily, all these. When you are now keeping these times, reforming these times, God now started to bring back those laws that made Daniel faint. You remember Daniel fainting and saying, what is happening? And in Daniel chapter 8, verse 18 to 8 to 14, verse 13 to 14, it says, how long shall be the vision of the daily and the abomination that make it desolate? So this abomination that make it desolate is 1798. And the sanctuary laws being taken off, they made Daniel faint, because the sanctuary of strength, of giving the strength to the people who worship God, has been taken off. But the blessedness is that from 1844, these times are sent back. So we are living in the time of the blessedness of after the 1,335 days, or after 1844. Now we should be rejoicing in the blessedness of keeping these times which all our brethren, the saints, were being killed for. Now we should be taking them back, and they come as a seal, and we are sealed to be in the kingdom. Now is the time to capitalize on all the laws which the beast was trampling on, not only the Sabbath, only in the 10 Commandments, but also the festivals, and also the daily, the sanctuary laws. All these bring a blessedness to your life, sanctuary of strength. Will you believe in that? Today we're going to go as far as Daniel chapter 12, so that next time when we meet, we can also start tackling Revelation. Yeah? So we are just narrating it as history, without taking classes in chapter 1, chapter 2, no. We do it as history, as people who have been prophecy scholars reading. Now we should be having a clear map of what God was talking about in these two books, so that we know what was the aim. The aim was for us to prepare for the kingdom, and to know all the events in sequence as they will come lying in front of us as we are preparing for the soon coming kingdom. May God bless you as you continue in the pilgrim, in making sure you make your election sure for the kingdom. Blessed